Ross, and hey, Beck. So
Hey.
cute. So
Hello.
cute. Welcome to the meeting, Bobby.
Jackie's super keen to learn about Microsoft Viva.
Excellent news. Okay, we will kick off. It is recording, so getting started for the session. I'm here. You can see I'm in my AvePoint ugly Christmas sweater because I got it after Christmas. I couldn't wear it for my December one, so I've gone all out with my AvePoint because I'm an AvePoint champ. So you'll see me in there webinars and conferences and doing all sorts of things alongside AvePoint. So I got all my I've even got my AvePoint drink. I thank you, Christian. He's showing his too. So welcome everyone to the beginning of the year, kicking off 2022. Oh my Lord, who would have thought? I've been running the user groups now for 5 years. It's a little hard to believe that it's actually been 5 years of running, Sydney, and it's 4, I think it is, for Melbourne. Although, of course, we're not sort of doing some of the flying around at the moment, but cross fingers, we'll get a chance to do that again real soon and help and support and see what we can do. So welcome all to those that have been here before or not. We'll kick in and get underway. We've got a bit to go through. I have made today an hour and a half because I knew without a doubt when you've got that many months and potential updates will be long, rather long. Okay, so kicking in, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. Hopefully we'll all be nice and welcoming. I'm always happy to have questions and we're happy to have viewpoints. And of course, with my guest speaker, Christian, being here today, please feel free to type them into the chat. And welcome from Nashville, Graham. Great to see you. And Craig, always good to see you coming back. I ask that we please be kind and understanding of the differences and in chat, and that we're respectful and use appropriate images and GIFs and consider it as, of the appropriate as always on the really whatever goes. My name is Kirsty McGrath. I am from On Point Solutions. I run the adoption user groups. You'll see me online and speaking, and I sort of live in the modern workplace and experience side of things. What is new? Okay, geez. So Microsoft 365, each month I start going, it's not as bad as I think. There's not much that's really being rolled out for December and Jan because everyone's kind of been on holidays. That's never really the case. As the moment I start getting into it, it's way bigger than I will often think, especially when you think about the whole of Microsoft 365 as a stack. I sometimes go, should I really talk about that? Should I dive down that road or not? And look, I always try and bring out the things I think that are going to affect the end user. Sometimes on the technical, I will bring it in because I know that it will actually have quite a big impact. But I do try to leave the technical to the technical user groups, the teams, and I don't generally go into the power stack and a few others. They've got some pretty big stuff on that side. So I let them do it in their user groups should you need to join. I have taken live a Microsoft 365 adoption YouTube channel. It is now up and running. So that YouTube channel is where I am posting my user group videos now. You will find, I will give you the link to it. So I've got my channel here. I'll copy it. I'll just put it into chat for you. So that I have done. It's still updating. I've got to get June in. For some reason, it didn't want to go in. But that is the YouTube channel. On that channel, I'm just going to hop out of the presentation for a second. I'll just show you one or two things just to support you in the journey. On the channel, what I've also done is, apart from the user groups, which you'll see all in here, I've created a couple of different channels. This is things that I have presented at previously, all the Microsoft Reactor. There are a lot of productivity sessions, my interviews, things that I've done for the MVP. So you'll see those in there. So that's all sitting under your playlist. In the past, I used to run the Work Wonders program for Microsoft. I've also put in channels that I generally tend to follow. So if you want to know sort of, well, what am I doing, or what are the sort of channels I follow? These are the things that kind of keep me up to date, for example. So they're all going to be listed out in there. As well as that, on my playlist, if I scroll down a little, I've put in here as well, adoption success videos. So these are the different videos that you're going to find that can be online. So I have put in here lots of different great places that you can actually go to watch videos around adoption success to help and support you on this journey. It's taken me a bit to put it together for you. Is it completely finalized? Yes. Oh, absolutely, Christian. I've been putting it up fast. If anyone has any suggestions for the YouTube channel, I will definitely put it in there for you. So if there's something that you follow that you think will be of value to us as a community, flick it through to me. Absolutely flick it through to me. So and I'll also look at what I can do. So your collab talks information, I have got it in there and some of those video successes. But it might not be there as a channel. I literally did the channels very late last night, went, I should get all these in. So I'll put some more stuff up for you soon. The presentation for today, I think, is in the initial welcome that I put in there. So if you are trying to find that, you'll be able to connect up to all that information. Just move a few screens around so we can see. Right. Moving forward to next. Right. What's new in the adoption side of things? The Champion Management Platform has had an update. It's now 2.0 is available. What they've done is they've got it where it's more of a consistent sort of colors and styles running right across the whole platform. Now, there is multi-badge support. That's the great part about that is now you can have more than one. So you've got other ones that you can bring in for your multi-badges, which is really great. There's connected info help and some feedback there so you can actually send it into the team. There's some really awesome information and some of the component and code enhancement and lots of really awesome. They've done some updates to the actual platform that you can then go into GitHub to make it just a little bit easier to roll it out. So you can keep yourself up to date on that. I'm getting notifications. Microsoft Viva have put out a 3-part series on their blog around adoption success. There's intro, initiate, and implement. There's just some of the screenshots that you'll see across there if you want to have a look at what's going on across adoption. And this will all lead into some of the really awesome stuff that Christian's going to talk about with us very soon. But I thought this might help you, and I can always link this through in a minute. In terms of what's new in Teams meetings and webinars. Hey, my little picture hasn't come up. In terms of the recordings and saving them into OneDrive and SharePoint, there's now some better controls around some of that, including the multi-speed playback to be able to do it at faster or slower speeds. I love that one. The transcripts that are coming through, indexing of recordings, that auto recording, we'll see a bit more about that, and auto expiration that's actually coming in soon. Adding descriptions to images in chat. Awesome. I put this in because it's around the accessibility features that I think are really important. We need to start considering it. So if you do put a picture into chat, you can do a right click and just add in some a text so that when it goes through its screen readers, it will actually help them in understanding what's coming through. When we've got our chat, it's now available for all outside, users. It needs to be enabled, so it's sort of part of administration as well to be able to connect with any user now outside the organisation. Some of the what's new in Teams, the meeting room capacity now notification will come up for Teams rooms. So it's a little banner saying the room's exceeding recommended capacity. So when you're dealing with your MTRs. Split video layout across multiple screens, as well as hot desking on Teams. So you can now do hot desking and say, where you're at. This is all part of that. Search results. So some of the search capabilities, you do have the 4 tabs running across the top up here to be able to support you, which is all messaging, people, and files. Some of the changes that are flowing through now, and it's added in a new sort of question and answer search option to support. Just in general, third-party apps have now got a request for native device permissions. This is important for the end user. In the past, you'd have it for browsers, for example, where it would opt in around videos, for example. Can you use that camera, your microphone and location? That is now in as a part of app permissions inside Teams. So something to consider. So if it's not it's not able to use as a native, not a third-party app, not the native apps, then that will need to be put into play for your end users. Press to unmute. So on Windows now, Control Space is allowing you to very quickly, as a keyboard shortcut, to mute and unmute. Mac is the Option plus space. This is in the desktop side of things. You can hide your own video coming in, rolling out now, should be finished by sort of early Feb. So around, no, I'd say usually that's within another week or so, cross fingers, unless there's another update. But the great part about that is we've got a lot of fatigue in terms of seeing our face up on the screen, which can be, you know, can be rather exhausting for our end users around adoption, so they can make some changes there. Okay, so coming to you soon. Teams Mobile, the walkie-talkie is available. It's in general availability on an iOS. You have now a companion mode for iOS as well. So it's a single tap to join. So if you're on your iPhone and you're actually inside a meeting room, so as part of your MTR, what it will do is it'll automatically turn off so that there's not echo from your mobile phone to what's in the room. So that's a feature that's come into play for users. A lot of times we don't think about it. It's just sort of doing it automatically for us. But if you do have training material or anything like that, you might need to consider that that will come into play and it will do a turn off.
Kirsty, if I could point out that the downside to the walkie-talkie feature is you have to, you can't say 9, you have to say 9er, and you have to end every time you stop talking, you have to say over. It's really annoying, but it's a feature of the walkie-talkie. So
good to know. Yeah. Thanks, Christian. Always good to put in there for those that are really dealing with the walkie-talkie side of things. Happy for you to interrupt anytime, Christian, if you want to expand on anything for the end user journey. In the browser, when it comes to Teams, you can now do simultaneous screen share and video. Woohoo! Okay. If you have a user, they just need to do a restart of Safari. I mean, it's, you know, closing it down. So if they've got a ton of tabs open and they're expecting to have it, they might need to shut it. That's coming very soon. You can pin a chat in your message now. That's more of a Teams rather than a browser type thing. So you can pin your chat up to the top in terms of the most favorite ones around critical content, and muting notifications during meetings. So now you can actually turn it off, whether it's just a specific meeting or for all meetings whilst you're in it. So for that one, it's just over, you'll see there you've got your settings, you can do it, or you can just go to the meeting, go into options and just go allowing notifications or not whilst you're in a meeting. So that's going to be rolling out soon. There is the new Files on Demand experience for Mac OS. There's a whole heap of information there around, you know, what that looks like and any potential training that you might need to do around OneDrive when it comes to the Mac environment. Sharing links that you can now block the download around videos and audio. It's dropped off there. I'll just throw that right in for you for your presentation. Discarded. I just throw it. And of course, it's completely dropped over to here. It's always the way. There we go. So with your audio and video, an important one, because a lot of times what would happen was it would just send out, but you couldn't actually block it at all, which became a real issue. The next one that I've put in, I've done it, although it sits in the admin side of things, and it is a little into the technical. What I really did love about the fact that there's the sync reports in for OneDrive in the admin center is that we can then help around some of the issues that are blocking people for adoption with OneDrive, because based on their sync health, we can start to see, well, what's actually going on, and we can kind of counteract any potential negativity, especially if it comes to behavior and potentially not a technical side of things. And even if it is technical, then we can at least investigate, you know, a little bit more around that as well. But I do like the fact that, you know, things like item names containing characters that aren't allowed, for example. So when you go into training, you can say, we're seeing a lot of this as part of the known folder migration, and this is how you actually manage it if you're seeing a lot of it for the business. So it's a good one for us to have. The OneDrive and SharePoint file support, the HEIC. So if you are uploading, like mobile phone, for example, on an iOS, do the auto upload. I have it going into my OneDrive with the HEIC file format. You can actually edit. It's got editing features available in both OneDrive and SharePoint. Now, the one thing you'll need to note that if you do save those changes, so once you do the editing and save, it does save it as a new JPEG file. And of course, a JPEG is a lossy file. So if you understand how to work with pictures, then over time, it will, the more you open and save or do something, it will decrease in quality, exponentially every single time, being a lossy file. So there's some information there in regards to your new editing features. I do love that one though. In terms of some of the other features of coming to OneDrive, you can move your shortcuts now into the OneDrive, so you can sort of drop them in, and it doesn't actually, if that folder has certain permissions around it, it doesn't actually change the permission of the shortcut compared to the folder it goes into. So something to have a look at. The update, there's an update. Okay, so the copy link command in OneDrive SharePoint. Originally, we talked about this a little while ago, but there has been a change so that it's now rolling out so that when you have that copy link, you can actually change the permissions now around the sharing and what it looks like so that it flows through and it'll adjust down here. So you make sure you got the right type of link, not just a sort of a generic link. Okay. Some of the information coming to Stream, it's a tough one because you kind of go, do you talk about stuff with Stream because it's sitting in OneDrive? Do you put it OneDrive, SharePoint, under Stream? Look, I kind of kept it in the Stream, but really you're going to see it more across the OneDrive SharePoint, where you have now your threaded conversations coming through on your video and audios that's actually saved in OneDrive or SharePoint. Coming late Feb. We can add edit captions transcript for a video in SharePoint and OneDrive. So this now, in terms of the user, and if they've been given permission around it, they can come in and even delete captions as well. So all the different things there to keep in consideration. So you'll have your video settings, you go over to the top right-hand side, and you can start to see, some of these other, components here. Okay, so things that will help you. There is on-demand captions, transcripts. There is a general delay. So just so that you know, that on-demand caption, mid-April now, it's been pushed out too. So it has been pushed out a little bit. There is a lot that's actually in Message Center and around online that there's been some general delay, I think, over Christmas and, from even, I've seen even some from June, July that have been pushed out again too. So keep an eye out. There's a bit going on in Yammer, which is great to see. You've got over on the far right-hand side, sort of on the rail on the right-hand side, some suggested communities and people that you can actually follow. You can now do the stay connected with your communities and look at recent activities. And that needs to change its little banner down the bottom. And then the Yammer topics creator can now edit the name and description of topics, not just the administrators. So that's now for anyone that's a topic administrator for the topic cards, which kind of come through from your Viva topics. Some of the other what's new with Yammer, new user profile page coming in. There's a communities expiry auto renewal of Microsoft 365 groups. The change there is if you've got activity going on inside that group, it comes into an auto renewal. So say if it's still active, like if something is going on, it will auto renew. It's only when it hasn't been utilized for a while that it will start to change a few things there. So I've put in some of the information around the Yammer festival recordings. If you didn't actually get to join, which we promoted back in December last year, that there was the Yammer Festival coming up, some really awesome content in there for you to go and have a look at, including some fun stuff to support you. The Yammer roadmap, so the link is up the top, you'll see in the heading. So the Yammer roadmap that's actually coming out over the 2022 period. I'll let you have a little bit of a walkthrough and have a look at this in your own time. Some of the great stuff is really around sort of the Viva connections and what that's looking like and driving it through a little bit more there. Okay. In terms of Office, on the accessibility side, there's an add-in that's coming through around accessibility reminder to be able to help and support your organization, giving notifications to those authors and contributors around how you can fix your content to make sure that it's, a little bit better around accessibility. So that's an awesome kind of add-in that you can start to put in. It's an app that sits within Office. Okay. Now in Visio, there are some great new pieces that are flowing through for the web, 5 new org charts, 8 new structural layouts, and some starter diagrams for Visio on the web to support you. What's coming in Excel and new, it will now support large files and SharePoint up to 100 megabytes so that you can open them, edit online. I know that's been a really big core pain point for a lot of businesses, not being able to deal with large files through the browser and working online on large Excel files and needing to have to pull them down. You can now edit files with legacy art objects and smart art. In the past, it just kind of came up as a bit of an error, so that will now come up, which is great. You can open and edit password protected files, so you can do that now through the browser. Loving that one. That'll make life a little easier for some. And some of the other coming soon is the support for large files from OneDrive. So the data sets in the browser, that's kind of coming from up the top, apology. Editing files in the presence of legacy shared. Okay, so this then is that data legacy shared as well as the legacy data. So things like text queries and your web queries and some of this old legacy, you can now actually edit those in your browser. Okay. Coming to Excel as well, searchable data, this is through the web, queries pane, text in shapes, you can now edit the text in shapes. I do like that one, that's one I tend to do a little bit. The paste option floaty, considering how much you use that on the desktop, it's nice to have that as a little drop down online, and a sheet directions switcher. We've got the conditional formatting coming through in Excel for the web. So now you'll see if you have a look, there's all the different, so there's a little pop-up and then there's all the different types of conditional formatting that are there. There's also going to be coming soon the reorder, drag and drop of files and some of the other rules and custom formatting flowing through. In terms of Outlook, the groups icon, it used to be a folder, it's actually changing to reflect the desktop version. And when it comes to the desktop version of Outlook, it's going to have the organization connector coming in. So you'll see on the rail over here in the bottom left-hand corner, it will actually come up with a little organization. So you can do your structural charts and your teams, and then you can see their roles and information as part of the org chart. I do like that one coming into Outlook. There is some different features coming in as part of the search. There's sort of more functionality when it comes to the out-of-the-box filters you'll see in the drop-down, as well as then some of the custom verticals that can be set and defined by your admin. In terms of forms, the one thing to know that the app is sort of changing a little when it comes to Teams. There's going to be the new sort of Discoverable Teams meeting is going to be sort of polls rather than the Forms app is going to be retired from Teams meetings in March. So once that's retired, it's only going to be available in the Teams channels so that you can do those survey capabilities, okay? So I'll put a little bit of information in there because that will change some of the components of the way people still using desktop version of Outlook. Yes, they are. I know there's some great features online around the AI. I absolutely do. But in the business world, they tend to like to sit on from the desktop rather than online. You know, it happens.
I know. You just have to bite the bullet and just do it.
I know. There is absolutely some great stuff. I totally agree with you there, Christian. What I do love is you can have up to 5 million responses now per form. It used to be, of course, so much less. It was only 50,000. So that is a massive increase. But once that form passes 50,000, the thing that you need to understand is you're going to get your analysis up to 50,000, but not after. So that sort of a results page is not going to show you past sort of that 50,000. You're going to need to export those results and do some of your own file analysis from then on, okay? The what's new in SharePoint. Oh, look, there's always a ton. Always go have a look at the pit stop. It's great content and information there. Now, this is sitting across both OneDrive and SharePoint. That, edit mode, you can do inking. So it's a great functionality around inking for your files there. Awesome. Good night subsites. So it was I suppose a little curated book that's been put out by our wonderful and favorite team, Rebecca Jackson, being Aussie. She's done all the illustration. Rebecca used to run and support us in the user group and running in down in Melbourne for me. She's doing some fabulous stuff in this space, so it's good to see an Aussie in there doing this great work alongside Susan and Mark. Go and have a look at it. It's really a lot of fun to have a play with. So, no. We've got updates to site creation. So it was talked about a while ago, but what they've done is made a few changes in terms of the experience around it. They've done a bit of a refresh on the graphics, expanded the descriptions, and then that permission has changed. Now, if someone's not too sure, they can just actually go and click on the little eye to be able to help them to understand what it's going to mean if they do change it. So this sort of permission piece has really then flown into what's new. In terms of Viva, look, there's lots going on in this space, being the newest product. And I do wonder whether to talk about Viva anymore in the user group, considering it is such a big topic. It kind of needs its own group now. It's one of those ones. But there is the Yammer integration that's actually flowing through. This is coming up fairly early. The Outlook integration there in terms of suggestions and topics and hashtags across the Viva topics, so you can get that knowledge. The people profile cards coming through so that you can find the topics, and some of the taxonomy around generating topics. Okay. We've got the enable. We can enable now when it is they actually get their insights email flowing through. So when you've got users that are across different time zones, for example, or maybe it's not working when it's coming through, you don't want to annoy someone in their day by having that that delivery coming in of the insights email, you can delay the delivery and say when you would like to be hitting that end user. So that's coming through at sort of mid-Feb. So the topic cards, lots of new actions coming through around job titles and navigation and all sorts of things. And there's a support now for a lot more languages for Headspace if you are using Headspace across Viva. There's a shared focus plan in Viva, a great one when it comes to the managers. If they have then they go just to my teams tab, and in there they can then enable what it actually looks like around a focus plan, so they can coordinate for their staff member and look at what the distractions and focus time and a few other really cool things coming in as part of the focus plan, so that they have less distractions, for example. So they can schedule up to 4 hours in terms of the the time and team time around that focus plan for the day. The Viva search topics are coming through. The topic editors can actually pin files and pages to the topic page, so that when you're actually searching, it comes up as part of the resource in the resource picker. I am going to be running a free workshop in about 2 weeks. It is part of RIMPA. They are your knowledge management group. So I'll be in there with a few others. So it's a half day. It has have a registration of up to 50 people. If it is something that you would like to come along to, you can always join. I will drop the link for you into chat if you are wanting to register and come along for a free half day workshop. Okay, one of the great things of some of the things that we do. Now, we get to, I got through all of that way faster than I thought. We might not go as long as what we did. So always powering through. But I would like to welcome Christian Buckley. He's the Microsoft GTM director at AvePoint. So he is not only an MVP, he sits way above us in terms of being a RD as well. He gets all the special stuff because he does all the special stuff.
There's not a hierarchy there. They're just different things.
Absolutely, there is, Christian. No, he's also a 6-time author. He has done a lot of really awesome stuff in this space. We have had him out here in Australia speaking. You may or may not have heard him speaking. He is from AvePoint, and I get to have a great relationship with the AvePoint team. So there's a lot that he does across engineering and marketing and field team, co-selling as sort of in the AvePoint. He does so much. He's got Collab Talk, which is a fabulous channel to watch, and interviewing people. He's got some awesome podcasts and stuff there. So he is going to discuss with us around how organizations can actually prepare for Microsoft Viva. So if you have any questions, now is the time to get in and drill in. His presentation that he might have, I'll have it here in the link. I'll get him to send it through and I'll drop it into the presentation for you so that you can connect with him. I am going to now hand over and get him to take hold of the screen. Welcome, Christian. Thank you for joining us.
Share. Hopefully it shares the right thing. Yep, it looks like it's pointed the right place. Let me make sure everything's open so I can still see this. And so please feel free to interrupt me if there are questions, something in the chat. If I'm not paying attention to that, just feel, you know me, Kirsty, I interrupt.
Absolutely, so go for it. Now's the time.
I prefer the live format that way. I'm never a hold your questions to the end. I'm a it could change the direction of the presentation. Yeah. So thank you for that. This is a one of those topics that like so many things that those of us that actively present, it came from discussions within the community and people wanting to know, like, what are kind of some of the fundamental things that I could be doing right now? We've not made a decision on when we're going to go and deploy some of these things, or maybe you've already part of the organization started to move forward and, have we done the right things? We find we're having to go back and constantly tweak. And that's been kind of historically the SharePoint story. And so this was one of those topics where I just wanted to go and say, what's in the documentation? What can we do? Start talking to people who are deploying the solution. AvePoint has the services site part of our business as well. We're very involved with a number of our customers and developing content and case studies around this. And so this is the third or fourth time I've given this presentation over the last year and a half. And we're actually developing a series of webinars, which will be and an ebook. And so the ebook I'd hoped to have out in time for this session, but it's going to be probably mid to late March for it to be done. But then we'll have probably April, May, and June in succession. We'll have a series of webinars where we will do more of a deep dive. So we'll actually, it'll be possibly me in all of those, but having members of our product strategy and services teams involved and talk about their real world experiences there. So for those that don't know me, Kirsty gave kind of an overview there. Although the title, Kirsty, so a week and a half ago, my title just changed. I'm now the brand alliance director. The job didn't change. The title just changed. But only because I manage the global alliance for Microsoft, but I also AvePoint also works with Salesforce and Google, and I manage those global alliances as well. So they thought that having Microsoft in the title didn't reflect the fact that I work in multi clouds. But so some of the things that I do. So the main thing that I do out in the community, I love highlighting the work of other MVPs and other experts. And so the two things that I primarily do is every Monday, I push out to my blog and podcast and my YouTube channel. I do interviews with MVPs around the world. And just highlighted today was my 150th episode with Paul Colmsey, who's a good friend. Those that know Paul, he's based out of Perth. He's a business apps MVP, and his daughter Ashley is also a business apps MVP.
And she was one of the youngest, I think the youngest ever to become MVP globally.
I think she was actually the second.
The second youngest. I know she's the youngest in Australia and New Zealand for the ANZ.
Correct. No, I think she's the second overall, because I believe that there was a young man back when I first got my MVP who was out of, I believe, Malaysia, who was, I think 17.
Right. Okay.
So, but anyway, he's grown old now. So, what's he done for me lately? So I have that. And then every Friday I have my Collab Talk podcast, and that's the broader topics that I cover there. I also do channel related. So for anybody that's a partner, if you work for a consulting company or a VAR or learning partner, the P2P Now series is brand new. We have new episodes come out, very short videos and blog posts every Thursday. I do my monthly tweet jams, which we just did one on ally.io, which I'll talk about briefly as part of Microsoft Viva, so the new Microsoft acquisition. That was the topic for January. I realized that for your time zone, it comes on, Kirsty, what'd you say, about 4 a.m.? Was that? What I think that, so anyway,
That's
people
about
who
right.
are serious about the topics don't have a problem with the time, but and then other things that I do, interviews, the Office 365 hours, and I also have regular videos that we produce and live streams around that are AMA. So it's all about gathering MVPs and experts and answering community questions. I just love that kind of content. So let's jump into it. So over the last 2 years, the modern workplace has really seen a transformational shift. I wonder what caused that shift. So for those of us that have been working in collaboration in the information management space, it's hard not to look back over the last 2 years during the pandemic and see it's not just that the pandemic happened. There's the increase in the pace of change that's happened. So it's forced organizations who were looking at like setting their time frame for this transformational change over to kind of the modern workplace, and it forced them to accelerate all of those plans, of course. But what a lot of companies also realized is that hey, we can actually do this. And so, there's a lot of pain for many companies that are out there, but I've just hear over and over and over again, companies that were already starting to make that move over to the future workplace, the modern workplace, and the digital footprint, that it was easier for the majority. It's always the 80-20 rule. 80% of it was much easier than they thought, but then that 20% is data and systems and things you have to clean up and really figure out how is this going to move across. That's always going to be there. It's always going to be that 80-20 balance. And of course, every company is different in how we experience and are still experiencing this change, the impact it's had on our company cultures, and also the individual experiences. So all of those impacts. Prior to joining AvePoint a year ago, I was a small independent consultant. I was doing marketing strategy primarily for Microsoft ISVs for 4 years. And I found myself, because of the pandemic, cut off from most of my main sales and marketing tools, which were events. And that was the primary way that I marketed my business. That's how I networked and had conversations with current customers, not just prospective or new customers. But at the same time, because the majority of my business focused on collaboration and information management around the Microsoft 365 platform, I saw a shift in focus of my customers, again, primarily ISVs, and with their customers. So in some, that shift included an acceleration towards the cloud, but for most of the companies, however, the shift had already been underway. And so it was really more around deeper adoption and understanding why some teams were adopting at a greater pace, were having more success, and specifically around Teams and more with depth with SharePoint and OneDrive, and even growth in Yammer. And I don't know how well that much everybody talks about it. Like AvePoint uses SharePoint as our intranet, Teams is our day-to-day, our hub for teamwork, and then we use extensively Yammer. I'm in all 3 environments every single day. In fact, and then every other day I'm using OneDrive for different purposes. But every day, I would even say 7 days a week, even my days off, when I jump back in and see things that are going on, I touch all 3 of those environments. So as people settled in for the long term, of course, it's not surprising that Microsoft is seeing, this hockey stick of growth. most companies that have deployed these systems, these tools, have seen that same hockey stick of growth, and just tremendous growth because, hey, we're all using this technology that we paid for. However, there are some realities to collaboration. So the number one is content growth and sprawl around that. We save everything: images, documents, video and audio, just everything. We have massive folder collections. We often have multiple local and cloud repositories. I have several Office 365 accounts, like separate logins. My own personal, my company, got like the Microsoft 365 community. I've got former client sites that I'm an advisor for another company that has an environment. All have these separate environments, each of them with their own storage. So I have files that are strewn across these different environments at any one time. Most companies do suffer from poor productivity, and so they recognize that they're not using the tools in an effective way. And so a lot of the insights that they go in and they're seeing, they don't understand some of the patterns that they're seeing there. But just as I say here, when data is not used effectively, it impacts or reduces discovery, collaboration, and innovation. And it's a simple truth. If people aren't using the technology, clearly we're not getting the value out of the technology. What's harder to see, though, is what is the lost opportunity around intellectual property creation, the innovation that's not happening because people aren't collaborating in a more efficient way. Another reality is the increase of security risk. And of course, if we're not following the protocols, if we're not using the tools the right way, we're making mistakes around our intellectual property management. And it's not usually intentional mishandling. I think we are better at identifying and stopping that kind of activity. But it's just the sloppy use of the technology. It's the inefficiencies which are the greater lost around that. And it's not a sustainable management model to poorly use the technology. We need to get more out of the technology that we've paid for. And so that decreased business value, which I mentioned. So one of the major problems that organizations deal with is data sprawl. If you think about your own systems, data goes in easily enough, so everybody knows how to upload content into the system. But then we have trouble surfacing that content again, finding it. So it's not about searching, it's about finding. How findable is your content, your data? And that affects the overall value of your collaboration, the platform. So what good is a system if you can't find the right data at the right time? Another reality is that burnout. And that was, I think, one of the main messages when Microsoft started marketing Viva. They started talking about the realities of burnout. And while we all like to think we're multitasking, multitasking is a lie. I always was proud of the fact that I was good at multitasking. In fact, I blogged about this a couple years back, but I remember in high school, one time I was listening to radio, some talk radios going on, and I had something on the TV as well, and I was sitting there reading and writing a paper and doing some research. And my mom came in and turned off the TV. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was watching that. She's like, "You're doing homework and you've got the radio on." And I'm like, I was able to follow along generally what was happening with the TV and was listening. I was doing. Now, the quality of the work, I just like to point out, I skipped 2 grades in high school. But besides that, like I was able to just kind of keep up and follow along, but it wasn't quality interaction with those different things. But anyway, I found out that so with burnout, with myself, that I needed to when I focused more, I was less likely to burn out on any one topic, one area. So that multitasking is just something that is just never proven out, and there's data and studies that are around that now. But we also have an evolving perspective on collaboration in general. So as we're using more and more of these technologies, collaboration is viewed as a business critical platform or focus area for the enterprise. many organizations have started to ask a number of questions, like, are we surfacing the right information at the right time, in the right places? Is the way that we're working, so our methodology or the collaboration culture, the bad habits, is that impacting how people are working, and is that causing burnout? Are we getting the most out of our investments, out of our technology? There's a May 21st, 2021 article in LinkedIn called The Hybrid Work Paradox. If you've not read it, that Satya wrote, I highly recommend that you go do that. And the link, of course, is in the presentation here. But he talks about some of the complexities of the hybrid workplace. And he talks a little bit about the multitasking problem, the burnout issue, and how every organization will approach it just a little bit different. And needs to approach it differently. You can't just go look at what was successful for another company out there and say, hey, I'm just going to go and implement that inside of my company. You have to understand the nuances of your own organization, your own corporate culture. And he points to Microsoft research that talks about the vast majority of employees say they want more flexible remote work options, but at the same time, they want more in-person collaboration post-pandemic. And that is as he states in the article, the hybrid work paradox, that we want flexibility, but we want the flexibility, but I want people in person when I need them to be in person. And he goes on to talk about how Microsoft is preparing for the hybrid workplace by prioritizing three things. Number one is that social capital. It's that, how we're communicating, how we're connecting and collaborating, the knowledge capital, so how we learn from each other, and the human capital, which is how we approach wellness and the work-life balance. And you think about that, I think we talk a lot about the tools and the social capital and the interaction, because a lot of what years past, knowledge management, information management, what was lost on that document-centric collaboration was all of the social interaction, which the conversation that happened in the halls or in the meetings, things that weren't documented in the documents that were being stored, didn't include all that contextual information. So we were good at the knowledge capital or the document side of social collaboration, but we weren't doing the capturing the conversations. And that's where a lot of knowledge was locked in. And then what most organizations weren't doing were looking at the human side of that. And that's a lot of where Viva came in place. So, of course, Microsoft has launched this new brand to address the growing needs of the hybrid workplace. They're not entirely new offerings. In fact, when the announcements were made, some people called the announcement window dressing and talked about the fact that these are just SKUs of existing efforts. And they weren't incorrect about that. For example, Viva Connections, which are just rebranded the SharePoint homepages. So that was something that Microsoft talked about for a long time and then delayed the launch of those things because of this internal discussion and the idea of doing something bigger. And that was where Microsoft Viva came from. And it just made sense that these homepages fit into this larger SKU or this rebranding and this new focus. So to some degree, the window dressing accusation was true. It might be a little bit tough. I'd say just this SKU, a repackaging of that. We had personal and workplace analytics. We had learning paths. Those weren't new. We were waiting for the SharePoint homepages to go live, but Microsoft recognized that that these features were pointing the company in a new direction. We were increasingly focusing on this category of employee experience. Microsoft didn't make that up. There's a number of companies. In fact, I just had a call today with Qualtrics, and they are going all in on employee experience and tracking and measuring that capability. And so they're a strong partner for Microsoft and other players out there. So I'm not going to argue about the quality of the branding, and I know some people may have opinions about that, the name Viva, and are you supposed to, when you say Microsoft Viva, like as I just did, throw up the fist and kind of shout it? I don't know. That's if there's an exclamation after Viva. For the record, as far as branding, so I'm okay with them branding that. I was still a fan. I'm still a fan of the Microsoft Zune and the branding around that. I have Microsoft Zune posters. So yeah. Anyway, I have a collection. I have a drawer full of Zunes as well, and yes, they all work. But I do believe that Microsoft is directionally correct in moving towards the employee experience. This is a hugely important focus area, especially as we're focusing more on adoption and engagement, looking at, are people actually using the technology? How are they using it? How do we optimize based on this going forward? So in a recent podcast recording, I actually shared my own background in the space. More than 20 years ago, I was scheduled to begin a doctoral program looking specifically at social informatics around collaboration technology. More specifically, I was interested in studying how collaboration technology, so the tools that we're using like SharePoint and other portals and tools like that, were impacting or are impacting or changing the modern workplace and how people work individually and collectively. So now to see Microsoft not only building collaboration tools and solutions, but using their technology, looking at how people are using their technology and providing customers with the technology to introspectively look at and better understand the nature of their own collaboration, it's really exciting to see this progress. So I can honestly say, and it's documented, it's not just me claiming that 20 years ago I saw this space and where it was going. Like, it's documented, and I've been blogging my buckleyplanet.com since 2004. So I actually wrote about some of the stuff that I was doing because it was 2005 when I was supposed to start my doctoral program, and I delayed my start twice, lost my placement, went to work for Microsoft, and then just didn't go back and finish that doctorate. So maybe someday. Financially, I just don't think it'll benefit me at all. It'll cost money, take a bunch of time, and maybe when I retire, I'll go back and do something.
Different.
But I do believe that. I'm sorry.
Do something different. Tag on to something new.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm going to end my career working in collaboration technology. I love this space. I've been working in it since, really properly focused on this area since the late 90s. And so I just think that there's a lot more growth to happen here. So, excited about these. They're not entirely new offerings, what Microsoft has out here that's in Viva, as I talked about. But there's just a lot here. I'm a huge advocate for the space. So let's talk about, what is Microsoft Viva? What is the purpose, the goals or purpose of each of the Viva offerings? And let's also recognize that we're still in the early stages of this. Microsoft has said, in fact, Jeff Teeper has said this at a couple times where he's done keynotes, and he said, hey, look, there's going to be other offerings. We have a number of things. We're not ready to announce any of them yet. And then shortly after is the last keynote where he made that statement, the announcement of the Ally.io acquisition, and in the OKR space, so the objectives and key results space. And I'll come back to that. So there's a lot that's happening there. So first you have Viva Connections, which is about amplifying culture and communications. And this is that SharePoint homepage. And it's funny with the rapid growth of Teams. One of the earliest requests, most in the frequent requests coming from the community was, boy, it would be great to have like a SharePoint site at the front, at the top level of a team, so that we could have that kind of intranet page. And so that's where the concept of Viva Connections came from, that SharePoint homepage, integration with Teams, and that's where we have Viva Connections. Second, we have Viva Topics. So this is about harnessing knowledge and expertise. And this is probably where the most depth and I thought was the coolest of the Viva features that was out there, just because, again, it's something that the idea, Microsoft didn't invent it. There's been other providers out there. A company that I worked for a few years back was a CMO for a company called BZ, that's sort of an intranet in a box solution, had like similar concepts to this within their social construct. And so I just think that it's a really cool idea, and I'll come back to that one. Viva Learning, so about accelerating skilling and growth, and having that as that tracking of the learning capability and the tie into everything has been, it's been missing from the catalog. We all want it. We all have solutions that are out there. And so it's great to see that. And then of course you have Viva Insights, and this is about balancing productivity and well-being. And there's a lot that's happening under the wrapper that's probably the least understood and fully realized yet, but a lot of growth that has to happen there, both from the solution itself and then also companies' consumption of that. So let's talk about each of those. So connections, it's about allowing organizations to pin an organization branded entry point to their intranet. And it creates that immersive experience complete with navigation, mega menus, and support for tenant-wide search. It also provides quick access to organization curated resources, followed sites, and news like those provided to the SharePoint app. So it can be pinned as tabs in Teams channels, providing ways to bring content directly into Teams collaboration workspaces. And these pages do not feature navigation and search elements. So the purpose of this solution is to, number one, to inform, is to help you to discover news and conversations. And discovery is something that, I'll be honest, Teams as a standalone lacks that discovery capability. And if we want to have a conversation about social technology, it's all about discovery. If you go look at a LinkedIn page or a Facebook page or Twitter and all of the annoying garbage on the sides that is distracting from your feed, it's all scientifically proven that we go and we use those to discover, to explore, to find. It's fed, it's intelligent. Well, air quotes around intelligent. But it's fed based on our usage patterns and common patterns through our network and what what the system, what the AI feeds thinks that we'll be interested in and we'll go and bite on. So it's like going to a grocery store and what are the weird products that they have in the checkout aisle, and they're all those are the most common things that are bought. We all have done it where we have no intention of buying that item. We're in the checkout and like, oh, we grab that small little thing. That's what a lot of the discovery process is like. But it's also there so to inform, to engage. So it is a curated, centralized destination that streamlines visibility into your company's critical employee resources through the personalized dashboard with quick one-touch access to information and actions. So it allows you just to get in, get the information, interact with it, get back out. And then finally, it's to deploy. So to get up and running fast using your existing infrastructure to save you time and money, and all the security, of course, that comes with Microsoft. Second is Viva Topics. So the purpose of this solution is, one, identification. So what it is, if you've not gone in and seen it, it's again topic cards. So curated, or depending on how you have it turned on, you can set it to automatically generate and post. You can have it where it's more tightly controlled and curated, so administrators go in and approve the items that then go in and appear, can add to those things. The company can make it a heavily curated experience, so they decide on all of the components, but the AI helps identify places within content, the end user experience. So for example, I'm going through, I see a document or I see an email from somebody and there's an acronym that I'm not familiar with, and it might be a hypertext link, and I float over it, the card pops open, and I see, an explanation of what that acronym is, what that project is, people that are involved, documents that I might need to know that are relevant, and find additional information around that topic. So it's about that identification. So using AI to reason over your organization's data, and I automatically identify, process, and organize content. It's also about, yeah.
On this, can I just ask, because I've actually had it where people are going, it just all seems like too much work. Who's going to have to manage all of this, and who's doing it, and who in the organization, and how many people about, and now I've got to educate. What have I got to do to educate them? Can we just touch on, and if you're going to do it, I'm not sure. I just thought I'd ask you, what kind of work are we potentially looking at? Sorry, have I got to echo Richard? So something coming up there. My apologies if I do. So yeah, just have you got something around that to be able to help people?
So that's kind of the key to the next step. So I'm describing like what they are, and then
Okay,
I've
great.
got kind of brief on like the setup for it. But that's topics takes the most effort of insights potentially has that's a rabbit hole, or it can be going into into reporting and statistics and data around the information, the usage of your systems. But topics, there's a lot of setup that's involved there. So yeah, if there's probably if you're hearing an echo, like I'm talking, so I don't hear anything, but I don't hear any echo when Kirsty's talking. If there's anybody that is unmuted, probably everybody else should mute. But now, Kirsty, you're muted yourself. But yeah, so I'll get in and talk about that. But yeah, that curation process. Think about it like search. In organizations that spend a lot of time with search, setup, clean up the organization, the information architecture, building out the taxonomies, going in and making sure curating the content so that it's it performs well within the search experience. You are that amount of effort is the same effort that can be leveraged for the topics setup and management. Yeah, how's have we improved on this? The echo? Are people hearing echo when I'm talking? Okay, so it's
okay.
Okay, I was thinking that was probably because my open mic and I don't have headphones because I'm really lazy. I just expect Teams AI to fix it, but yeah, sorry. All right, yeah. So it's about it's about identification, about curation. So because it is that it can be a highly curated process that it combines both the AI capability as well as human expertise, and it can automatically build those topic pages and topic cards using suggested definitions, related content, relevant conversations, and the expertise of people. But it also allows administrators to go in there and fine tune that, to curate those topics and cultivate that knowledge. And so make sure that it is not just what the AI identifies as what's popular, what people are clicking on, but what should be the right content for those cards. And then, as I mentioned, it's about the discovery process, which is missing from a lot of most of our information management collaboration experiences. That proper discovery. So it automatically displays topic cards across Microsoft 365 applications to help people discover knowledge in the context of your work. So whether you're finding it within Teams or SharePoint or in a Word doc or in Outlook or in Yammer, you're going to be able to find it and present that in an organized way. And it will, the topic cards, they highlight and display in any app, and you can find topics anywhere. So giving people the knowledge they need anytime, anywhere by using search to discover topics. So it actually show up in the search results as well. And then learning expands in the Microsoft Learning pathways to help organizations create a more engaging and a seamlessly integrated solution into the places people are already spending the time at work. So across the board, employees report low engagement with learning and have limited time for upskilling. There's always a problem. Like I've worked at multiple organizations, multiple big companies that said, hey, you have allotted dollars, spend on taking certain number of classes. It was actually built into my annual commitments to go and to, each year to go through a certain number of classes so that we're constantly learning, we're adding to our expertise, and yet never seemed to find time, didn't know our progress. There was always a rush at the end of the calendar year. Either everybody's disappearing to vacation or they disappear into the training classes because they don't want to lose those the funny money, the dollars, the internal dollars to go take those training courses. It's just not a good way you need to spread those things out, vacations and learning.
All good? Hello? We still got you there, Christian?
There we go.
Yeah?
All right. Sorry about that. I just, I think my VPN hiccuped there, but,
All good?
right.
We can still see you.
Okay. Let's see. So it's Viva Learn it's essentially a training aggregation app that appears in Microsoft Teams. So when a Microsoft Teams user opens up the Viva Learning app, they will see a number of courses that are curated for them if it's been set up within your organization. And the courses then should be relevant to your job title, your skill set, your experience. So all those things can be, again, curated for that experience. And then the user will be able to consume training from a variety of content providers, internal as well as paid and free external. It'll aggregate all of those things. So that's a great thing for organizations that want to provide a better tailored experience and then also better manage, balance the learning, the time frame for the consumption of that learning, and check the progress so that we don't just see it everybody is taking vacations or completing classes at the end of the year, when I don't know about anybody else, any other company, but like end of year is important because closing out sales and there's just so much that's going on. It's a very busy time of the year, at least for an ISV. It's very busy. So content that will be immediately available comes from a variety of sources. So your own learning resources, of course, Microsoft Learning, LinkedIn Learning, Skillsoft, Coursera, Pluralsight, edX. They're adding other sources. I know there's a number of third-party learning partners that are adding their content into the system, make that available. Then Insights, and the purpose of Viva Insights. Now, this has been expanded a little with the Cortana, formerly known as the Cortana Insights, now part of Viva Insights. I absolutely love getting those emails. I'll be honest, most days I look at those emails that come through with those insights, look through it, yep, got everything, just delete. But the fact that they come in, there's occasionally, I'd say once or twice a week, I'm reading through those things and I see, oh yeah, that was like a call to action for me. I need to follow up with that person, or let me go add that to my to-do list, or let me go add that into that reminder and send it out via chat to somebody on my team. So I get at least one or two a week where I'm getting value out of the Viva Insights, formerly the Cortana, the email updates. But it's also what it's about. The purpose is that well-being, which is often overlooked. Flat out, organizations aren't thinking about health and well-being of their employees to the degree that they have started to during the pandemic. So it's how we as individuals react to, participate in, and are empowered by our tools and our systems and our processes. So Insights can provide a very powerful insight into improving employee well-being, especially during this massive shift to remote work. It's also a way to measure the level of engagement. Adoption and engagement are two different things. And both can be defined differently within your organization, but traditionally adoption is looked at as a simplified version of adoption is, do we have licenses for the person? Yes. Have they logged into it successfully? Yes. They've adopted. That has been historically like the view of the limitation of engagement, that it infers like there's action, there's activity that's happening there. So engagement is really what we're trying to drive. This is where Microsoft, I think, woke up a few years back, where they realized that when companies got to the end of their enterprise agreements and were not renewing a lot of their licenses, and they were like, whoa, what's going on? We did so well. We sold all these huge licenses, all these deals. Why are they not renewing? And companies were saying, well, people aren't utilizing the technology. So instead of 1,000 seats, we only need 250 seats. And so Microsoft very quickly learned that engagement levels and the value of adoption and engagement was very important to the renewal process. And so they're suddenly Microsoft sellers were being measured not only on license sales, but on usage of those licenses.
That became
So
an amazing turnaround, didn't it? It was around
changed
about
a lot of attitude.
2016 where it came into aligned as part of their key KPIs to look at. And it's interesting because you talked about the adoption engagement, and we see it still even inside the business where they'll talk adoption, and I see it coming out on training type stuff, but it's actually not. It's just rolling out the tech and making sure people, and then assigning and license, and it's not adoption at all. So if you're on this call, just keep an eye out.
Line.
Yeah. So I see it, and I'll do the read through. And I had one just recently, a 2-day course. It was nothing to do with adoption, as we kind of think of it in our community. It's that, what do we do, and what does the wording kind of look like for us as a community when we're talking engagement to adoption? Yeah.
And how am I doing on time, by the way?
You're okay, 1:10. We finish at 1:30. A lot of the we had Chris McNulty come and speak in May around, what is it and how is it going. So if so it'll be more, how can we as businesses, especially on adoption and change, and really get engaged, and what does it look like for us?
Yep. Well, the last one of course is the newest, is the acquisition, is Ally.io. And I just did the tweet jam. I know Kirsty, for some reason, 4 a.m. was not a good time for you to join us.
I know. You know what? It's funny. I had it there, but it was going into our public holiday. That's our Anzac Day public holiday. And I was so wrecked. I crashed, totally forgot. Normally I set an alarm the night before. So I do have to do the apology for that one.
That's why I
totally missed.
Apologize for that. No, I strategically scheduled the tweet jams to happen right before holidays within your region. Yeah.
It didn't work as well for us.
So this is a category. This is a space that personally, I've viewed it as a gap for years for Microsoft, because like my entry point into SharePoint back in 2004, 2005, I was coming from the project and portfolio management. So I had started to get like collaboration technology and other things, but I was strong and I was consulting in project and portfolio management. And so collaboration and the social tools and things were in context to project and portfolio management. And so when I kind of caught the SharePoint bug and got involved, the idea of having a roll-up of commitments, so objectives and key results. The idea that, the CEO comes out and says, this year we're going to accomplish these 3 things. These are what we're going to drive on. Every then business unit, team, and individual should understand what they're doing, what their role is, what I do as an individual contributor at the bottom of the organization, that the things that I'm working on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis roll up and deliver on what our company goals are. Like, that is critical to have that shared understanding. And there are many organizations that get that do a good job at that. I've worked for 3 companies that I think did a decent job of that activity. Microsoft was one. Hewlett Packard, the time that I was there, did that. And to some degree, a couple other smaller companies I worked for, I guess, had versions of that. But that my regular check-ins with my manager, my quarterly, my half year, my end of year reviews, we're all looking at what are your activities and driving and having impact in the business. That's what Ally.io software does, OKR software does. So Microsoft has acquired Ally. Now you have the CEO, the management team is part of the leadership team for Microsoft Viva. And so there will be a new module. I don't know if it'll be the Viva Ally module, they'll rebrand it or whatever that is. But they already had, integrations in with Teams. So it's building off of, it's leveraging that technology. So according to Microsoft, aligning employee work to the company's strategic mission and core priorities is top of mind for every organization. To do this, leaders need to invest in tools that communicate transparency around big company bets and create ways to cascade aspirational goals. A lot of $5 words here in this
Do you
press
think it will
release
come
here.
under one of the 4 banners and just be integrated, or its
No,
own?
no,
Like we now
it's
get
meant to be,
we'll get 5.
it's meant to be number 5.
That's
yeah.
what I kind of thought based on the announcements and what came out, that it was going to now be a 5, and we're going to have all new logos and all new stuff to promote and potentially educate on.
Yeah, and when that happens, and then when they release like a 6th one, and we'll go back and we'll say, is it gonna get all complex? Does it make sense to have all of these other individual logos and things are out there? But
it's already
you know,
feeling complex for most with 4, to tell you the truth, based on I've got so many organizations that go, haven't even touched it, not looking into it, don't have the time, just seems all a bit too big for me at the moment. So yeah.
Only thing I would say is that let's have that discussion when they have the 6th item. I just think that this was such a gaping hole in Microsoft's portfolio. I was excited to see them go and purchase a company. Just for transparency here, AvePoint is already, like, we're going down the Ally.io path. We were already moving that direction before the acquisition news. And so it's something that we feel is important, and we want to have that as we grow exponentially, that we want to have that tool internally as well. I think personally it's important around that. So I just wanted to talk about like what that is. I don't have any other information, any guidance for rolling that out, because I've not used Ally. So I'm finding out firsthand about Ally here in the coming weeks. How to prepare. So as you are aware, Viva, of course, this is relatively still new. We hit with Ignite this last fall, GA across all 4. I'm not going to talk about licensing. Don't ask me about licensing. I honestly don't pay attention to that stuff. I very much look at when people have it, the aspirational, what's possible, the technology that's out there. So I'm not an expert on what is an E3, what's an E falls under E5, what's above and beyond even E5, and what you need to go and do for those things. So I realize that that's a weakness around this. As I create this, we're working on this ebook. We will provide some of that information there. But as you're aware, so this is all brand new. It's a moving target, especially when you talk about, as Kirsty, you went through the list of all the changes to Microsoft 365 at the start of this thing. There's so much.
Jan, December, like it's actually December announcements they've put out at the end of Jan or beginning of Feb, and said this is December's. So
it's a backlog, right?
Who knows what it's going to look like for next month, guys? So strap in. I've got it as an hour, but we'll see how we track.
So some of the fundamental steps, though, an organization can follow as you prepare for each of the Viva offerings, as well as some general guidance that applies. And again, what I'll say here, this is pulled from as I talking with my team that does deployments, that does the services side. There's very little documentation that I found that's been helpful that Microsoft actually provides around this. There's probably the most documentation around topics, just because there's more work that has to be done there. And so I'm going to broadly go and talk about each one of these. I've got links to where you can go and find additional information of this. But let's start with connections. So I've got the link to the connections overview, but to use connections, your organization will need to upgrade to SharePoint Online using the modern experience. So it's built on the modern experience. You'll need to deploy a SharePoint home site in your tenant. So if you're still on-prem or the SharePoint Classic experience, it's a good time, if this is something that you're interested in doing, to start mapping out that effort required to do that migration or make that change. So setting up an out-of-the-box SharePoint home site is pretty straightforward, but before making the shift, it's essential to design for new ways of working. So take the time to consider your approach to content migration. So create that. I guess I should go through the transitions that I have here. Consolidate there. Organize your information architecture. This is something that I harp on a lot. So that was my background. My early days of SharePoint was all around information architecture and taxonomy, because I don't know, I like search to work. That's me. I mean, you do you.
Yeah.
But that's going to be
metadata is just, it's king. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's all of the and this is something. I mean, I learned those lessons working with IBM technology in the 90s and building out the portal and going through a lot of this. I mean, all of those truths still hold true about organizing your content, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time project. It is an ongoing. It's a job for life, managing taxonomy and metadata. So take the time to consider your approach to content migration, governance, information architecture, and design. So these concepts can be surprisingly different in the SharePoint modern experience. And remember that only modern SharePoint sites and pages can be viewed in Teams, and all their content will open in a browser. Organize your information or architecture. You cannot escape this task. And then one often underestimated ingredient is well-managed Azure Active Directory groups. So personalization and targeting of Viva connections rely on good AD data, as well as the content to support the targeted experience. Global navigation is enabled in SharePoint. It is recommended that global navigation is enabled and customized in the SharePoint app bar so that SharePoint resources appear in Teams. And I'd say too, and I just have the one last build here, just open. Oh, actually, I do have 3 more. I'll just open that up there. Yammer is another key ingredient required to get most out of the Viva connection. So if your organization's not using Yammer, we can have another conversation around just Yammer and the value of Yammer within the enterprise. But if you want to get the most out of Viva connections, many of the social and news notification features are powered by Yammer. So it's important to set up and configure Yammer with Microsoft Teams and make sure your Yammer network is in good order. If you're curious about what that might entail, you can check out our insight post on launching Yammer in enterprise organizations. And then the first version of Viva Connections can be provisioned through PowerShell and then will be uploaded as an app in the Teams admin center. So download the Viva Connections for desktop PowerShell script, and future versions of Connections will be automatically available through the Teams admin center. So it's
probably not in the more technical of how to prepare with the with the team, the guys we've got here. It'd be more things like, if we don't have Yammer, what does that look like for our end user?
It's not going to have a lot of those capabilities. You can still it'll still work. You'll not have most of the social capabilities and the news sharing.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see, for topics. Topics offers many opportunities to extend the value of Microsoft 365. Of course, many of these capabilities are even more effective if your organization is actively leveraging the full spectrum of Microsoft 365. Look, so much of this is, if you want all the bells and whistles, you turn more of the tools and the features on. So if you have a very limited deployment, like you don't have Yammer, that's just something that you need to, just understand with each of the different capabilities. Yammer is just another set of signals of information that can be pulled up and made visible through Viva Topics. Obviously, you don't have that information. You don't have some of the, the knowledge sharing and learning, the intelligence that comes from the social interactions in Yammer. You won't be able to benefit that from within the topics. But some of
So we have a question. Okay. We have a question. Just so what if you have Yammer, but the uptake is actually very low at the moment?
So that may be a great way. Of course, Microsoft in the adoption.microsoft.com has a lot of tips and tools and best practices for increasing adoption and engagement of Yammer. So that would be a place to go.
Give me a call, Andrew.
Yeah, there's a number of partners that can help you out as well. But you can go look at some of the templates, and they provide guides, they provide email templates and different challenges and games to kind of gamify the experience to get people to go over and utilize it. One of the, so Yammer growth has been on the rise in the last 2-3 years. And it's once again in the Microsoft 360 stack, one of the fastest growing areas. I believe, and Microsoft people shake their heads yes, the agreement when I say this, that it's because of the integrations with Outlook and Teams. When Microsoft released those things, people then started to understand, oh, I see now the differences between and the relationship between, but we were missing some of those key integrations to get reminders, to have the left nav rail, click easy access over into the Yammer communities, to see the references, the links between, like I'll get, Outlook, and I'll get prompted and it'll open up Yammer through within Teams. It'll open up over within the Teams interface on the Yammer, icon on the left nav. It'll open up there. I'll consume that way via versus the browser. So it just that thing opening up what was that integration over inside of Teams.
They've become a little better at clearing up that, Teams is where you go to do your work, whereas Yammer is the, organization and the ways to communicate and social, and they've got much better at understanding that, which helps then sort of go, well, I know it says that what to use when type, they don't overly love that, but it has become a lot more helpful in terms of them being very clear and articulating.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I was a big fan of the messaging around inner loop and outer loop. I thought that was a great explanation for that, where, if I'm working on a project where there's 5 people that I'm working with very closely, Teams is just built for that. If I'm trying to say, hey, here's an idea, and I want 1,000 different people, share your opinions, your thoughts, your experience around that. That's not a Teams thing. That's a Yammer. That's like a social community where I'm looking for feedback. I don't know where that interaction is going to come from within my company. I want to share out broadly and get a wide range of feedback. When I'm in Teams, I want the people that are focused, that are relevant to the tasks at hand. That's the difference between the two. Anyway, I know that's a completely different presentation of adoption of Yammer, but you have that more higher use, then it's going to improve the quality of the results back in the cards. So again, preparing for topics, it again gets back to the information architecture, the importance of that. It's also cleaning up the permissions and the roles that are created out there, so that who's curating, what they're curating within that experience. And as I mentioned, updating also the SharePoint pages to modern SharePoint. Some of the checklists that Microsoft talks about is going in to setting up the topic experiences, making sure that you outline, each of these different areas. Again, I know that we're running short on time. You'll have, the slides and the content behind this. Insights, again, a link to the overview of that, the required steps there. It's gone GA as far as September, October. It's available now. So go out and validate those users. Go out and for more than 5,000 employees, investigate the workplace analytics, read the documentation around that. And I don't have a lot of information out there. Microsoft is, at the time, last update for this, didn't have a ton of information out there. I actually just realized that I don't have my updated slide. Let me go add that in before I share that with you later tonight.
Thanks. Yes, that's great. Thank you.
And then around, learning is one way to get started is to bring together learning and development owners within your organization and start review what's coming up and discuss what these features mean for your organization. Most organizations that have already gone and developed learning paths and were using that previously, or have a third-party solution in place for learning and development, already have a ton of content that's out there. So understanding, hey, what we have already in place today, is that something? Does this feature set, is it add to that, or does it just make it more complex? And the stuff that we have built in, it's one of the things about Viva. You don't have to turn it all on. You can turn a single module off. Learning is the one where I think there are the most conflicts with existing solutions. Companies that have already gone far with learning solutions may have incompatible tool sets, and you might want to just wait until it's time to relicense and then make a decision whether Viva Learning provides what you need or not. Or it may be
I'm also finding though, I'm also finding that it's also been a gateway to get them into Viva because they don't necessarily have a good learning solution. So
yeah,
it's been
exactly.
the flip, and I'm finding that I'm having much better conversations when I start getting them into the learning when they go, oh, it's all too big, it's all too hard. Who's going to look after it? Yeah.
And there's many organizations that are exactly that scenario where you don't have a formal solution in place. Well, it's great. Well, then hey, you don't need to. You can leverage this versus something else that's compatible with everything else that you're doing. You've got all the other insights. You're creating more signals into Viva in general. But you go through and start cataloging what resources do we have available. Of course, there's a number of things that will be available, kind of open source and available out there. Coursera, edX, LinkedIn Learning from Microsoft itself, as well as internally developed, and start going and building out those plans based on different roles or departments or experience levels of your employees. So there's a lot that you can go and do there. Of course, there's no costs or no subscription options that are out there. You can point to SharePoint, you can subscribe to a number of different services. So more and more third-party solutions that are available out there. What I recommend kind of in general around this is for each of the applications to go through a formal discovery workshop, understand the key roles that are necessary, the business scenarios, what you already have in place for each of these things. Pilot, always pilot. Don't just go out. It's like doing development on your production system. Don't do that. Go and pilot things. Each one of these, go and pilot out and experiment and understand what does this actually look like? What will our experience be? And get feedback from our end users. Microsoft says this, having that flat SharePoint site architecture is going to, of course, you're going to make it more complex with everything that you go and do there. But anything that you can do to simplify your site architecture makes it easier to go and deploy these solutions. Design and test the global navigation for the browser and Teams. As I talked about, the Azure AD groups, using for any customizations that you go and do. There's more and more that's being discussed around Viva over within the PNP team's efforts. And I'm not following everything that's happening with the PNP group. I don't know if Kirsty, that's something that you talked about in the user group, some of the, keep up to date with what is coming out of the community through the patterns and practices team. But there's just a lot of things that have come out of there and best practices that are shared around Viva through that group.
Okay.
And then create pages assuming that they will be viewed outside of the SharePoint context. So if you're a SharePoint organization, you've always looked at the world through the lens of SharePoint. You need to start expanding that view. I've got some slides here. I know we're out of time. We're slightly over here, but some other successful intranets. I've got some guidance around this. But where have organizations found success? I'll paint all of these so you can just see them all on screen. Then I'll talk about them very quickly. Search. So communication, for example, a homepage that includes news for around the organization to keep employees informed. Overall navigation. Content. It's a place for the functional parts of the organization, such as HR, legal, IT, to offer their services to the rest of the organization. So make sure that you're thinking about each of these different pieces. The actions and activities. So links to time tracking system or the expense report forms and other of those kinds of resources are important to have visible. So if you go and deploy, the point here with each one of these, think about these different areas. If we're going to roll out one or all of the modules, how does this change our culture of collaboration? How do people work today? How will this change? What do we need to train, people around? What will support look like as we slowly roll this out? How will it change our culture? How does this change or impact or expand our mobility, or the work from home model, the work from bring your own device model, whatever those things are? And then all of these things, make sure that you look at all these things through the lens of search. How does it impact how people are finding content and reusing assets that are being created within the organization? Always hurry at the end of these things. So I've got some planning best practices. You can read through this afterwards. And then I also put together some words of wisdom from Microsoft themselves. So these are things that come from docs.microsoft.com when they, kind of a broader view of planning for a restructuring and a deployment of something like Microsoft Viva, things that you should consider here, and some links to expand on these different points. And of course, things that hopefully everybody's learned, like information architecture, not a one-time process. I just say that as many times till I'm blue in the face, and then people still treat it as a one-time thing. Oh, we did that one time 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I've got my other planning best practices, and I'll provide that people can look through it. One last thing, I'll leave you on with this one is I absolutely love this book. I've talked about it in dozens of presentations, but it's an easy read. But go pick up The Social Organization, because it talks about the importance of understanding the community, your audience, and understanding how does our community, what's the context of collaboration? How do we work together? What's the culture of collaboration within our organization? The social is, what are the tools? You might have 20 different things, but what are people actually using? What are the patterns of collaboration? That ties into community. All these things tie in together. And then what is the purpose of that collaboration, and understanding, how people are coming together, who and how, and then the why of are people using these tools. You need to have a firm understanding of all three of these things to be successful ultimately in any deployment, but certainly with Viva. And I know I rushed at the end, apologies. So there's never enough time because I talk a lot. But thank you for the opportunity to present and share
all
this.
Good. We really appreciate it, Christian. I know that there's a ton of knowledge there that we can draw on as a community. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them into chat. If there's something in particular, or I'm more than happy for you to raise your hand and come off mute if you want to ask anything around sort of Viva and getting ready. So how have you sort of tackled that? It's all a bit much. You just got to find the tie-in. It's like all adoption, find their aha kind of moment and a reason, the business case.
Yeah, it is. Like with anything, is you take it from the perspective of, when somebody comes in and asks you, say, well, how do you leverage the technology? So get into the specific. Don't talk in the broad generalities about collaboration, but find out how they're actually using something on a day-to-day basis. Or if they're not using the technology, understand the processes that they own and drive or participate in, and then approach, how they could be using it, how they can be improving on those actions if they're leveraging the tools. But so you need to personalize it.
Yeah, like all things, you've got to have a good reason to take up anything for any business, isn't it? Just to close off, if anyone's got any questions, I'll come back. I'll keep an eye out on chat. Where do you find other support? Don't forget, join a subscription. Subscribe to the adoption newsletter that's being rolled out, which is great. They've got the Twitter site to keep an eye out on. Always pushing out some really awesome content that are around the place. You've got learning pathways. Look, the champs call was supposed to go ahead on Jan 25th. It hadn't actually gone forward, as my understanding. It did roll out a lot. The recording hasn't gone live online yet, but hopefully we'll have something there soon in terms of the resources. You do have learning collections. So the link is in here to be able to help and support you on learning paths. The other adoption resources links as well as where do I often find a lot of the information. Really, it's a lot of the blogs on Tech Community. I work my way through the blogs as well as the Message Center and my big core ways for me to be able to pull together the information for you. Some of the other user groups around the traps to join into, and considering we are, I suppose, in this digital age and COVID, a lot of it is all being run online right around the globe. If you're willing to get up at all hours of the night, there is a ton of information. You can go on the Microsoft Global Tech Community events. A lot of us are actually posting them in there, and you can go and have a look and see what else is running around the globe should you wish to join. The links to past presentations, and I have been placing those up online. Look, it's only been the last year that I've put up, but I'm going to put up the speaker presentations from some of the past as well, in terms of some of the historical stuff. But there's a lot of work to do to sort of pull that apart in terms of some of the recordings, but I will put them up over time. In terms of what's next, 1st of March, hopefully we're actually going to have it on site at the Microsoft Reactor. We were looking at today's being there, but with the explosion of cases in New South Wales and across Vic, we've decided that Australia's now a little bit of a hot spot. Cross fingers, we'll see how we're going, but we're looking at trying to do it in person. For the Sydney side, we will still have it going virtually as well, because we do have our Melbourne team and those to be able to join in. We are going to have Swoop coming in. They have been doing a ton of research. So we've got some really cool stuff around the seven deadly sins of collaboration on Microsoft 365. We will have Emily, we'll have Dr. Lawrence Lockley, and Kai will be coming in to have a talk. We've had Swoop on before. They're always a really wonderful guest to have in. So they'll be coming in on the 1st of March. I have put the link in the group for us all. So any thoughts or questions, feel free. It looks like we just got lots of thank you. And I appreciate you all coming in for yet another session. And thank you so much, Christian, for joining us at, I don't know, what time is it there for you now, considering it's, 1:30 here?
It is 7:40 p.m. here in the Mountain States.
In the evening. At least it's not 4 a.m. and we're waking you up.
No, it's not bad. No, and I usually, like, my office hours, my availability for people is generally until midnight my time. But yeah, not tonight. I'm not saying, Kirsty, give me a call after this. So I'm actually prepping for it, because I have to be on a flight at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So.
You're finally getting to go and be somewhere in
Yay.
person. Just
yeah,
exciting.
it'll be interesting. Yeah.
It will.
But I just want I do want to say that, just a reminder again. So so I'll have an expanded ebook on this topic. It will be out before the end of Q1. So if you don't already follow me out on social, just Buckley Planet. Please do. And of course, you can reach out to me directly. I'm just christian.buckley@avpoint.com. Drop me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn. If I can answer a question, I will.
Absolutely. Thank you. I will, I'll drop in your Twitter details and handle it. I think it is, I have put it up in the meetup as well. So I will.
It's in the slides as well. You'll have that.
Yeah. So if you can send that through, we will pass it on to the rest of the guys. And there's also the collab. Here we go. Collab 365 as well. So hang on. No, that's the other two. Okay. I have, by the way, on YouTube, you're already up and running, and your YouTube channel is now in the featured channel. I did that while we were chatting. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Don't forget the recording will be available, and I will post on YouTube. And as soon as that is done, I will make it available for you. Thanks, everyone, for joining yet again, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Bobby. Bye, Jack. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed your snacks. Great to see you, Beck. It's been so long since we've done the in-person thing.
Can't wait. Bye.